In this video, we're talking all about how you can start your licensed residential, assisted living, or group home business while working full time. Consider this your step by step guide. The biggest question that I get from folks who are working full time is, Ariana, how much time do I have to dedicate to this business to get it started? Because I'm already working full time and I'm not sure I have it in me to launch this business while I'm working. But on the other side of that, they feel like they need to because of the income and responsibilities and all of that. So it's all about, from what I hear, is balancing the job and starting the business. That's why I'm creating this, so you can get your group home started and do so while working your full-time job, okay? Because that's what's going to get you closer to financial freedom. But first, who am I and why should you listen to me? So if you're new here, hi, I'm Ariana J. I help men and women build wealth through care, through licensed assisted living, certified group home, and a variety of community hub services. This is huge work. This is about making impact and income for me, because we can't just make impact and have a thriving business. We also have to have the income. So that's me. I have my own 7-figure agency that I launched in 2017. My first $1 million year was in 2021, and I've had consecutive $1 million years ever since then. Another fun fact is that my students have generated over $6 million in revenue since 2021, and I'm actually so proud of that. They worked so hard, and I'm so proud of the impact that they're making within their community. And guess what? You could be next. So let's go ahead and dive into this, guys. So by the end, you will have the exact steps that you need to build a successful and thriving licensed assisted living, group home, or community hub business focused on the residential piece while working your full-time job, because that's the big component here. So the first step of this plan is going to be really to understand your business plan and to plan out your business. So step one is all about like planning out your business, planning out the license type, the requirements, your startup. All of that is going to be included in this step one. You need to have a very clear business plan. You need to understand the service you're going to provide. You need to understand the population that you're going to serve. You need to understand who's going to pay you for the service. Yes, you need to set a realistic budget for this startup and a timeline based off your research, right? And you need to understand the regulations and requirements that you are going to need to hit and meet before you submit that application. Some things could be policy and procedure creation, requirements with training, personal background and history with the population that you're serving, depending on your license type. That's why the description of service and population are so important, because realistically, your plan can be big, it can be small. It's going to depend on what you are trying to do. Traditionally, licensed assisted living is going to have a lot less regulations and guidelines and requirements than certified group home, right? So me knowing that off the top of my head, I can tell you, if you're going to go for the group home, you're going to probably make a lot more money, but you're going to have more requirements. Therefore, your plan is going to be a little bit bigger. That's okay too, as long as you know it from the beginning. So we're going to plan out your business. That's going to be your step one, okay? It's going to be important that you take the time to go through this process. It's not sexy, but it's important, okay? Transitioning over to step two, which is all about time management and scheduling and some delegation in there. I can't tell you how critical this is, because if you are trying to get started and you mapped out your step one, but you don't have the time available to actually implement any of it, getting to launch is like damn near impossible. So when folks ask me how much time do I need to put into getting this business launched, I tell them very realistically 5 to 10 hours a week. That's very realistic, okay? So with that, you will need to make sure that you are setting aside time after you are done working, right, to work your business, to work on your business. And I also understand that that is really hard to do when you're a wife, you're a mother, you're a husband, you're a father, you're a partner, you're all these things to all these people, and you're working full time. You're like, what do you want from me? I want you, my friend, to build a very successful business. But to be able to do that, you have to carve out time, okay? And so part of that is about scheduling. You could even look at time blocking, if you will. But the most important piece is figure out what days of the week you are going to work your business based off of your schedule. Don't try to force it in there. Look at your schedule already and see what it is or where you are available within that time frame and put it in there. Block it out on your calendar, okay? When it comes to actual delegation, so you can relieve some things off of your plate, do that. Some people don't know how. Lean on the people who are around you, right? Who is in that home with you, right? Who are the extended family members you can call on or friends you can call on, right? You need to pull those people in and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to need your help on X, Y, or Z, right? Maybe it's your children where you are like, I'm afraid to not spend time with my children as I focus all of this time on getting my business started. I understand what you're talking about as a mother, and I felt that same guilt that you might feel right now as you're thinking about getting your business started, okay? For me, what I've had to do was be very transparent with my children. Now, my kids were really little when we first started this business. My husband worked on the North Slope, so I was a single parent 6 months out of the year, 3 weeks on and 3 weeks off. So the guilt was really strong of like, oh my gosh, like their dad is gone, and I'm taking time away from them to start this business, and I really had to have a strong, hard conversation with myself because it was like, if I don't do this, we're not going to get to where we need to be. And I hate to say it. Actually, I don't hate to say it. Sometimes we have to have those real conversations with ourselves. You, my friend, will not get to where you want to be if you do not have some sacrifice. And yes, unfortunately, there is some sacrifice away from your kids as far as giving them their attention that they need, giving them the attention that makes your heart feel good, and then setting aside some time for you to work on your business without any interruption from your children. It's possible. You can do this. I did it and many others have, okay? During this time management piece in step 2, you need to also think about if you're going to have questions during this process. Do you need to join a community, a mentorship? Do you need to have a coach? Do you need to bring on a consultant that's going to help you with all of these things that you are going to need to get up and license? And is that going to collapse your timeline to success? Because that's exactly what we do. Is I help my students from start to launch and even scale and beyond, because we're collapsing their timeline and we're giving them the information that they need to be able to move through the licensure process, okay? As we move over to step 3, which is all about securing your funding. Now, it is true that you may have heard me say that you don't need a lot of funds to start this business, and that is very accurate. However, there are some nuances with that, and that's going to depend on how you are going to get started. Now, you can get started in your own home for licensed assisted living or certified group home services. You can lease a building or facility, or you can go and buy. Now, as you can see with those options, your startup costs are going to vary, right? So if you are going to get started in a home that you already own and you have another bedroom or two, you could go ahead and license that home, and your operating expenses, especially if you are going to be the care team member providing the service, is going to be super low. But if you are going to license that home and bring on a care team, your expenses might go up because now you have to pay staff, right? Your expenses for leasing a home are going to be a lot higher than if you start in your own home. But sometimes that's a really good option. That's how I started. I started in a lease property. Your expenses for a lease property and your startup that way is going to be more cost effective than purchasing a property, right? Because you have more output of funds that you have to put out to get that building or facility up and started, right? Is this making sense? That's why there's going to be a range, and it's going to depend on what you want to do with your startup process and how much funds that you have access to. Now let's talk about access to funds, because a lot of people think that you have to save all of your pennies and coins and that's the funds that you need to start. That's how I started, by the way, right? With my own money. You need to have access to funds. So it doesn't necessarily have to be your own dollars, but you do need access to those dollars to show for reserves, operating expenses, and this could be reserves for licensed assisted living, or it could be for waiver services, depending on what you are looking at. All right, so we reviewed step 1, we talked about step 2, we went over step 3, we have arrived at step 4. Step 4 is all about building your team. So remember in step 3 when I said, if you're going to be the caregiver, this is what we're going to be discussing now. Building out your team. You need to decide if you are going to be the caregiver up front and or if you are going to hire a care team. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Ariana, like we're talking about me building this business while I'm working a full-time job. And yes, you're absolutely right. But at some point we have to look at when that transition is going to happen for you to come and work in the business, or for you to hire somebody to work in the business and still transition out of your job, right? So this is going to depend on how much capital, how much dollars do you have access to? Do you want to start with you being the caregiver and transitioning out of your job into your care business to get it started? Or do you want to hire somebody, which will in turn make your reserve amount that you probably will have to show go up? Right? If you are looking at spending conservatively $5,000 or $10,000 a month on staffing costs, then you have to think about what that's going to look like over a 3-month period of time or a 6-month period of time. You get my drift, right? So you're going to think about that. You can very simply transition out of your full-time job into being the care provider for a short duration of time, build up your funds, and then transition out of the business and bring in a care team, okay? So you can mix and match this however you want. It just needs to feel good and aligned to you so you can actually complete this. This is something that is part of the full scope of you being able to start the business while working your job. Because if you're not thinking about that team that's behind you, you'll be like, oh my gosh, like, how is this going to work? Who do I need? What does their skill set need to be? Your very first hire just needs to be your care team. That is, if you meet all of the administrative requirements or go through the training for that, your first hire should be the care team member. If you do not meet the requirements and you need to hire a partner or contract with somebody who does meet those requirements, then obviously that would be your first hire, right? And the care team member would be the second hire. But I encourage you to really think about what you want this to look like in step 4, which is all about building your care team. That is going to be your step-by-step guide of how you can actually get your business started while working a full-time job. I hope you found it helpful. And my ask of you today is going to be, if you are working full-time, sit down and map out these 4 steps and kind of fill in the blanks so you can kind of get a draft of what this would look like for yourself. You can also include things of, I want to have my business started by, right? Whether it's 12 months, it's 24 months, whatever you want to put down, include that in the plan so you're actually seeing something realistic and tangible that you are setting for yourself. And if you would like support, help, mentorship with getting your licensed residential or group home started, definitely apply to work with me below. We also have some really cool resources for you. We also have a mini course that you can watch absolutely free. I will ask for your name and email though, but you will have access to this mini course that walks you through how to get started, how I actually did it, and you're actually going to see some numbers. So for more tips, training, mentorship, and coaching, ensure you like and subscribe and share this video with anybody in your life who you feel will find value from it. That's it for now, and I'll see you on the next video.